Hey, what's going on, fam? Welcome to the Get the Bag podcast. I'm your host, Gladia Castro. Got my co-host, Tim Park.
Hey fam, what's
Got,
going on?
we got live. This is episode 32. I want to say,
Mm-hmm.
really excited for this one because we get asked this a lot as well, or it's typically an excuse brought up, where it's like, hey, I want to get into real estate, I want to get into wholesaling and close my first deal, but I have limited funds. And so, based off our experience, we'll kind of go over how you can really close your first deal with little to no money, and be able to use those funds to then um, reinvest in closing more deals. And we did do a budget episode probably two
Mm-hmm.
episodes ago, so definitely go through YouTube. But of course, don't forget to subscribe, hit the link, um, follow us on Instagram. We're always here for you. And throughout the conversation, feel free to post your questions. I always love answering any questions you guys have, or any way we can help you guys out. So without further ado, we kind of broke this down, and we're also kind of doing a different format. We're going to switch it
Yep.
up. Tim, you want to tell them what the new format will look like? It's not like super major, but
No,
maybe.
yeah. So instead of going an hour long when it's just the hosts, no special guests, we're gonna go to a 30-minute time slot and cover, just the points and tips for the topic that we're covering, and then when we do have a guest, we want to allow that guest to have enough time. So we'll still continue the hour time slot going forward. So
Yep.
that's kind of the change right now. And, we're just trying to be a little bit more intentional about, our podcast. And just like we're intentional about our real estate
Hmm.
investment companies, then we're just trying to just be more productive for you guys and then pump out a lot more content.
That's right. So we're going to just squeeze in what we usually talk about an hour in a 30-minute span, which I think is enough. You guys don't
Mm-hmm.
want to hear us talk for an hour anyways. Although, I'm sure you guys like listening to us, but we do feel like we can condense the information in a 30-minute span where you guys can get as much information and take action. But of course, if you guys ever have additional questions, always feel free to reach out to us.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, starting off with how to close your first deal with zero to no money. And this is really tailored for those people that, you know, maybe want to get into real estate, want to get into wholesaling, or maybe they tried it out, and for some reason something happened and they start at ground zero. So we wanted to kind of give you a little blueprint and also talk about maybe our experience. But we believe if you kind of really follow these steps, you should be able to close your first deal. As we always talk about, everything is consistency
Mm-hmm.
with anything that you take. But with this sort of blueprint, honestly, all you really need is a phone, a car, gas, money. I mean, most of us have that, right? At least.
Right.
Or
Right.
if you have a buddy who has a car, borrow it for a little bit. Or, so it doesn't really require too much thinking. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
just go out there. Um, so we'll kind of break down each step in terms of like, and I think there's in total maybe um, 6 or 7
Mm-hmm.
steps
Mm-hmm.
that we broke down, but we may add some details in between them. So the first one, really, and I think any influencer or person who's been in real estate will mention driving for dollars is the most cost-effective way to close your
100%.
first deals. What is driving for dollars, Tim?
So driving for dollars is basically looking for properties that are distressed properties or properties that you may think are not taken care of, and usually their lawn is not cut. There's the windows are boarded or something of that nature to where it makes you say, huh, that looks like a possibility to where I can maybe call that person and see if they want to sell that house, right? So
Right.
you're just looking for opportunities while you're driving, and that could be just driving your normal commute, right? Maybe
Right.
take a different way sometimes because we're creatures of habit, so we go the same way, kind of the same way to work or the grocery store, whatever it is. But sometimes take a different route and you'll discover like maybe there's possibilities. That's why they say drive for dollars, right? You never
Right.
know when that next deal is going to come in with that. So,
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm gonna backtrack because I should have mentioned it too. So we say little to no money, but I mean to keep it real,
mm-hmm,
there has to be some upfront costs really when it comes
absolutely.
to it, right? So just setting the expectations is like you could do it with no money where it's like a phone, car, and gas, but um, I think it's important in like investing in yourself. So if you do have something, I do think like the blueprint, maybe the most would be $100, maybe 150. So facts, what Tim said with the driving for dollars is like, hey, like a lot of us commute, or maybe you work with Uber, Lyft, and you're driving around. A really great free tool that you could use, Google Maps does
Mm-hmm,
it, where you can pin specific properties. It is a little bit hard. It's not really meant for that, but if it's a thing where you're driving, you see a beat up house or a house that's has been ignored, you can just save the pin and then always go back, and you can actually bookmark the your drives. So that was one thing. But if you do have the extra funds, DealMachine is such a great tool,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
because they have an actual app that's meant specifically for this purpose. So while you're driving, you can turn on the app, and you all you do is just tap like, yes, I want to add this house. So it's a really great way when you're doing it. They also, if you're virtual, they also have an extension connected through Google Maps where you can do it that way too. So still really, really affordable, $50 a month, I think it is. But if you're balling on the budget, Google Maps is the best way. But this will really start to get you thinking, because a lot of people, when they see a beat up house, they're
mm-hmm.
like, ew, that's gross. But for us, it's like, oh, we get really excited. So always something to keep in mind. If it looks like it's the house is ignored, roof looks messed up, then that's most likely something that you should reach out to the owner. But let's say you have the address and you're like, shoot,
Mm-hmm.
how do I get in touch with the owner? Um, what are some good tools to skip trace on a budget, would you say, Tim?
So if you don't have the funds to actually skip trace, because it does cost money to skip trace, there's a website that you can go to that is free, and you can put in their address and then search for that, and it'll come up with the owner's name and then associated phone numbers for that particular owner. And the
Mm-hmm.
website's called truepeoplesearch.com.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll put it in the comments as well for people that are viewing, and then we'll put it in the show notes as well. But it's a quick little website that you can go and skip trace really quickly. If you do have a few extra dollars that you can spend, or $100 that you can spend on skip tracing, then you can go to batch skip trace as
Mm-hmm.
well, and skip trace it there. We also, early in my career, I went the Fiverr route. I
Oh yeah.
looked for people on Fiverr that could skip trace it for me. I used that service once. So it's definitely different ways to work around your budget. But if you have like zero to none, then True People Search is probably your best bet.
Awesome. Yeah, that's even I use it even sometimes now. If I want like a quick search, or if my record's been exhausted, meaning it's been skip traced several times, like I still use
Mm-hmm.
True People Search. It's such a great tool. I think this may accrue fees, but like white page, was it not like yellow pages, but like white
Oh yeah,
pages or
white
something
pages. Yeah.
is
Mm-hmm.
also a good one. It does, I think there is a cost to it, maybe $20, or actually I think that's if you do a deep research. I want to say it's like $6 a month. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
there it's a little, they do offer a little bit more options, but I think it's honestly the same. same kind of it works the same way as True People
Mm-hmm.
Search.
Yeah.
Now batch skip tracing is really great because if you do sign up, you could also just single skip trace, which is like 10
Mm-hmm.
cents. So if you're
Right.
again balling a budget, like, and you got say 10 records or 20 records through your driving for dollars, that's like what, $5 or less than that. So I'm sure, instead of buying your cup of coffee, you can just skip trace, your driving for dollars lists. Um,
Definitely.
yeah.
Definitely.
So the next step, I think this is where people get caught up. And I think I totally understand too, are the contracts, the agreements. And I think we were talking about this last night, Tim, where, sometimes going into a course or a mentorship does help because they provide those
Mm-hmm.
options, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Whereas if you're just doing it like on your own, there are tons of resources out there. So I
Mm-hmm.
know many big time real estate influencers. I think Pace Morby,
Mm-hmm.
Kong. They actually offer, I think you have to opt into their mailing list, but they do offer their contracts for free, their
Yeah.
assignment and their purchase agreement. So to close a deal, you would need those two documents.
Yeah.
So the purchase and sale agreement is usually a much simpler form, like 1 or 2 pages that just says, hey, we're going into agreement between ourselves and the seller. Now, a
Mm-hmm.
question I get a lot too is, do I have to get an LLC to get sign the agreement? And the answer is no, you don't. It is a little bit, you would have to put your name in there,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's totally fine as long as you have the clauses. But it's, I always want to say a disclaimer, right? Because it's always recommended to have an attorney look at it, but how many people
Yeah.
actually do that?
Right.
So I do think that there's so many options out there, but definitely be careful and read the agreement thoroughly. There should at least be the specific clauses to opt out, meaning there's a closing date, and then if that it's assignable, and
Mm-hmm.
that worst case scenario, if in that you have a way out of the contract, meaning like this is I think the clause is something like it's all up to the due diligence or the inspection period. And if
Mm-hmm.
we cancel basically before the closing date that's set, then you
Mm-hmm.
have a way out. So as long as those agreements state that, that's totally fine. Anything you wanted to add to that? Because I think that's like the biggest thing. Anytime we come across
Mm-hmm.
contracts, we're like, oh man, I don't know what to do. I'm too scared. What if I get in trouble?
Exactly. No, I think you're spot on because if you join like different courses or different mentors, they do have kind of a vetted attorney contract that is looking at, but it's always always give it to your attorney in your market, right?
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
can do it because mine are specialized to California, even though I wholesale virtually in other states. But it's geared toward California law, right? So,
Right.
and just kind of protects you a little bit better and kind of, just gets you in the right position to be in favor of you, right? The
Right.
investor. So another one is Flip with Rick. I think he
Yeah.
has a free one as well too. You can download. I think in the future you know, as we add to more resources on the podcast, I think that's one of the things we'll probably add in the future is the simple contract that you could use
Yeah,
and download
definitely.
as well too. But right now there's so many out there that you can, but we always advise you to, you know, pass it to an attorney friend or your attorney to have a glance at it and look it over to make sure you're protected. That's all.
Yes, yes, definitely. Very, very, very true. One last thing too related to the contracts that people usually freak out on is the EMD. Or
Mm.
like, I remember the first time I was like, I don't even know what the EMD. What's the EMD? It's an earnest money deposit. Usually something that you submit with the title company or your real estate attorney when you get something under contract, and it's just something that solidifies the contract. Basically, a little small deposit. Um, I know people who put in $1 in there. A
Yeah.
lot of times
Yep.
sellers do not, especially those who are not analytical or, don't kind of look into things like that. They just sign it like that. And so a dollar is nothing. So if that's something you're concerned about, I mean, just enter an amount that you feel comfortable losing, like worst case scenario, like even sometimes like $50. But another great tip that I've learned is like, I don't even pay for that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It comes from the buyer side. So if I
Right.
put in like $1,000, or obviously in California, they typically expect higher deposits, but sometimes I'll put 300, $500, where, and if sellers specifically ask, I want a specific amount, that's just another objection you have to kind of get through. But don't be, scared or intimidated by the EMD. It's just
Mm-hmm.
kind of a way of formality.
Yeah, 100%. Because I think my first deal, I only had $10 on there because it was
Yeah.
the amount that was on the contract. I didn't even think about changing it at the time. I was just so excited to do my first deal
Right.
and get it under contract, and the seller didn't even catch it. And most
Right.
sellers that you deal with that are older, and they may not catch that EMD, but
Hmm.
a lot of the maybe savvier people that have sold houses before understand that concept of earnest money deposit. So,
Hmm.
just negotiating what that looks like you said, in our business right now, we don't put anything down because we have a relationship with the title or escrow company that allows us to wait for the buyer to put in the EMD for that. So that's
Right.
another
Right.
um, a, a gem that you guys could utilize as well, just to have that great relationship with your title company or closing attorney or escrow company.
Love it. Yeah, definitely. So definitely check those places out. We'll put everything in the show notes afterwards, the
Mm-hmm.
tips. But the next step is like, okay, I have somebody who's interested. I have the purchase agreement, I have the assignment agreement in case, to sign it. Like, how do I send it to get it signed? Now, especially due to COVID, electronic signature is a way to go. So you don't need to um, send or actually go out in person. Nobody really does that anymore, especially due to COVID and people not feeling comfortable meeting face to face, or I think they used to call it belly to belly or whatever. Um, just I thought it was like silly. But Docusign is your standard, and I think they do have a 30-day free trial. But if you're really balling on the budget, PandaDoc
Mm-hmm.
or HelloSign are free. I think HelloSign takes like, I think allows you to send 5 documents, and PandaDoc, I think they just have a free plan. So when I first started out, like those are the ones I used until I closed my first deal, and I just got like Docusign because it's more streamlined and you can integrate it into places. But I think you can as well for PandaDoc and other ones. It's just a preference. But those are really great tools where you just upload the agreement, fill in all the information, and then send it to the seller's email. And that's it. So that's always a great way to get send these contracts out, and it makes you look professional too.
Mm-hmm.
The way you can kind of tailor it is just kind of setting the right expectations with the seller of like, hey, this is our process. We don't, because we do so many deals, or, however you want to say it. We usually send things out through electronic signature. A lot of times, sometimes if you're dealing with older people, yes, you do have to go out in person. But if it's virtual, if there's somebody you don't know that's in the area, you can always send a mobile notary, which would
Yeah.
cost some money.
Mm-hmm.
It does vary on the notary person, but maybe I don't know how much you've spent before. I've spent like $50,
Mm-hmm.
depending on like the region in the
Yeah.
market. But either way, it's super convenient. They're usually really nice. I just pick a local spot, and then they go in, sign it, and then send everything over to you, and then you
Mm-hmm.
can use that.
And it's really simple. It's very professional as well. They think you have a
Right.
team under you, and so it just gives you a little bit more credibility as a business, doing these type of deals with that kind of support.
Yep.
Another good tip is that if you want to do like DocuSign and take advantage of like 30 days, free trial, or I think 15 days or whatever it is,
Hmm.
you can wait till you get the contract signed, right? Wait till you got a deal. Don't sign up for DocuSign before you have a deal,
Yeah.
and then let that time elapse so where you have to pay. Just make sure you got everything locked up and ready to go before you, um, you know, send those kind of documents out. So just
Yeah.
make
Or
sure
just use
that,
a fake email until you
yeah.
close the deal.
Oh, I know. Yeah, I think that
Everyone knows that
David
hack.
David did that hack a lot. So he would use
Yeah.
different emails. So
Yeah,
that's
don't use
funny.
your real email until you've closed your first deal. Then you can use a trial.
Right,
DocuSign,
right.
don't come after us.
I know, right?
Everyone does it though. That's
Mm-hmm.
the funny part about it. Perfect. Yeah. So I love those tips. I mean, ending with the electronic signature. Let's just say you've sent it, the seller actually, those notifications you'll see like, oh, so and so has seen the or assign document viewed, and then you see
Mm-hmm.
that it's been signed. And then it just becomes really real because you're like, okay, what do I do next? And so this is where having a course is really helpful, because for me and Tim and I, we were just talking about this last night, how after we got our deals under contract, it was just kind of like awesome, like for like what, like a couple of minutes. Yes, I got my first deal. Then you realize, oh shit, what do I do next? And then
Right,
for us, we joining Chris Jefferson's course, we were able to like go in where he goes over dispo process. And he's
right.
like, okay, um, you have it under contract. Find your buyers, market to your buyers, hit up the title company. It was literally, for me, I needed like every step of the way. Um, but dispo, I mean, just so you guys know, like the acquisitions end is like actually getting the lead, getting the contract, and then disposition is a whole other like sector really of the
Mm-hmm.
business, because you're dealing with title companies or real estate attorneys, the buyers. It's a whole other process that you
Mm-hmm.
have to learn. So we recommend, if you do have something under contract, is actually reaching out to an experienced or vetted wholesaler. And I say vetted
Mm-hmm.
because there's those sketch wholesalers who will daisy chain, meaning
Mm-hmm.
they'll reach out to this one other person. So you really want to make sure that this person is established in your market, and reach out to them. Like, who's going to say no to a deal? So if like, I got something under contract, I'm new, I'm going to reach out to Tim and be like, hey, Tim, like I got
Mm-hmm.
something. What do you think? Am I right on the numbers? And if Tim, you're like, yeah, yeah, I have a list of buyers. Let's go from there. The only thing as well when you're JVing is there is a JV agreement as well.
Mm-hmm.
So not to kind of
Mm-hmm.
complicate things, but that's also another form of or agreement that is also provided in tons of. I think Pace Morby has it. Flip with Rick
Sure.
does, and it's just an agreement between you and the other person, saying like, hey, we're going to split this deal 50-50 or however much. Sometimes depending on the experienced wholesaler, they may take a little bit more because they're doing more, but usually it should be like 50-50, especially if you brought the deal
Mm-hmm.
from the seller. But I honestly think that's the best way, and I probably would have done that instead of figuring it out. But for me, I needed to learn the process.
Yeah,
But what do you
100%.
say to that?
No, I think it's the one of the easiest ways to kind of get and then learn like the closing process. Because if someone has gone through it before and understands that and then has the buyer ready in that particular market, I think it's just a kind of easy layup, and it's an assist
Yeah.
that you need sometimes, right? And like you, I didn't utilize that. I'm a type of person that was like, well, let me try to get this first. If
Mm-hmm.
I don't, then I will JV with somebody, because I knew always that was there because we had the group. But
Right.
I just wanted to kind of do the whole process on my own, and kind of take it from there.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Don't be afraid to ask for help. But again, it's if you're not part of a course or a group, you really need to be cautious in like who you bring on. So like I said, make sure somebody's like vetted, and has done several deals in the area.
Mhm.
So if you don't do that route and you decide to like kind of go through it on your own, it's definitely achievable. It's just you're gonna have to really pick things up as quickly. So really hope this helps out. So usually the next step is like, okay, where's a title company?
Mhm.
How do I get buyers? So if you're balling on a budget, Facebook is going to be your best bet. So
Yeah.
Facebook groups, so many people have content that mention it. Just go onto Facebook groups, type in your market. So if it's like we're in LA, Los Angeles real estate,
Mhm.
you're gonna see so many results of that. So you're gonna want to join as many groups as possible. Where because a lot of times there's going to be buyers in there. And a
Mhm.
hack that I learned, like once you join a Facebook real estate group, is you just go in that group, you hit the search bar, and then just enter at gmail.com. And all you're going to see is you're going to get the pulled up list of anybody who put in their email. Because what happens is people will actually create a post and be like, hey, I'm a new wholesaler, or hey, I'm looking for deals, or hey, I'm in this market. Where are my buyers at? And usually,
Mhm.
a lot of times, and again, you have to be cautious because sometimes it's wholesalers pretending to be buyers, so they'll just put in their email. But I'm pretty sure I'm on several people's buyers lists,
Yeah.
which is pretty
Yeah.
funny.
Me too.
Somehow I put in my email. But this is a really great way to just find buyers. And then once you find buyers, there is a specific vetting process to ensure that it's everything's okay. But you can do this all within Facebook.
Right.
That's the beauty of it. And the same tip for title companies is
Mhm.
finding, just type in title companies in that Facebook group, and most likely than not, somebody has already asked the same question. Where it's like, hey, what's the best title company that's wholesaler friendly, investor friendly? And a lot of people will actually post that out.
Yeah.
But there's other ways too to get title companies and buyers. Is there any other kind of methods you've used, Tim?
Yeah, all those are really good. I think LinkedIn is underutilized as well too for
Yep.
title companies. You can look at title companies that are maybe investor friendly. Of course, do your due diligence. Interview them, make sure that they are investor friendly, and then also with your buyers. Just don't uh, get excited and then this buyer says I'm interested. Interview them and make sure that they're actual buyer. They're not another wholesaler that is looking for a buyer for you. So it's,
Right.
you just want to, that's, going down the daisy chain route, but just make sure you interview your buyers and make sure it's a good fit, and get proof of funds. That's the
Yeah, I was
easiest
gonna
way to
say.
find out if that's a buyer or not, is to get proof of funds. So
Yeah, proof
that's
of
another
funds is
tip.
good. And yeah, like and proof of funds, and also saying the EMD, because
Mhm.
you want buy-in from the buyer too. So you need a deposit from theirs. And so if you have an assignment agreement, usually that lays it out, and that deposit from the buyer can be applied to the purchase agreement, like we talked about earlier. But a good way to like get people is like, I'll just say it's a $10,000 EMD. Now, if you're in a much smaller market, maybe the deal is, you got locked up for 5,000. You can't
Mhm.
say $10,000. Maybe $2,000, but usually a higher amount. People will be like, oh no, I'm not even gonna bother. So that's a
Mhm.
good way to vet out daisy chainers. But proof of funds, or another people have mentioned, is like HUD statements, or like,
Mhm.
hey, what are some deals that you've closed? Could you provide that? And if they complain, you can be like, this is just our company policy. This is part of our process to vet. Once we really like get to know you, that won't be necessary. But this is how you build your buyers list when you're, just connecting with people. But of course, if you do have some money, PropStream is a really great tool. That is 97
100%.
dollars a
Yeah.
month. We're just giving you the stuff on the low.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
PropStream you can pull lists, you can access to buyers. So they have filters where you can see where your cash buyers have been. You can see the company name. You can look them up. You can't skip trace an LLC, but you kind of have to do a little bit more investigating. But usually it's not very difficult. But LinkedIn for sure is super underrated. Um, but okay, let's just say we found a buyer. We
Mhm.
found a title company. Um, all this is happening, and at the same time, you have to get pictures of the property to vet to like send to your buyer. So I'm kind of like reversing this here, but
Sure.
a lot of times this can be confusing of like, well, how do I go in there? How do I see the property? There are some different options. Some do cost some money. Some, is maybe gas.
Mm-hmm.
If you are virtual, definitely connect with somebody who's in that market. Maybe reach out. Maybe it's the person you're JVing with, where it's like, hey, I'm in your market. This is a deal. Could you check it out? And they can go and take a picture. Or you can go yourself. You can connect with a realtor. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
the realtor can bring in the buyer. Realtors are really, I think, not many people use them. I probably haven't used them as much as I should. But you can go out. They can just go take pictures, or you can ask the owner to take pictures. Sometimes
100%.
that works as well. Depends on the age. Sometimes maybe they still have a flip camera, or like the pictures aren't that great. Or if you really none of those options work, BP photo flow, it does cost some money, but it's a really great tool where you can actually put in an order for somebody to go out there to take pictures of the property. So again, there's a variety of options you can to close that deal.
100%. I think, if you're really, if you're virtual and you don't have the money, you can't drive there, that your best bet is asking the owner and just explain to the owner that, hey, we're really busy right now. We can't get anyone out there in the next few days. Can you do me a big favor by taking some images? So you just frame it in a
Right.
way that you are doing multiple deals, so that they understand that you kind of are busy,
Right.
and that they're doing you kind of a favor by doing that, because you always kind of pass it on to your business partner,
Mm-hmm.
that he's not able or she's not able to get over there at a certain time, or the person that actually goes there to look at the property is not available at that time. So
Right. Yeah, exactly. So that's really the process there. Now there's a
hmm
lot of small details here and there. But like I said, we're kind of down to 30 minutes, and we can if you guys have additional questions, we'd be more than happy to discuss that. Maybe do a topic on that specifically. But this is
sure.
honestly like the blueprint. If you're really balling on the budget and you want to close your first deal, if you follow this and are consistent with it,
hmm
and you actually like call the sellers that you found on your driving for dollars list, somebody's going to pick up. And it's possible that the people on your list are just not interested right now. So
Yeah,
it's also setting a process down. You don't need any fancy tools really, until you close your first deal. Then you can invest in those tools. But I do
absolutely.
see there is a question here from our previous, talking about true people search. Is it
hmm
best for single skip? If you're you need to skip something real quick, yeah, you can put in, say you get a number, you can put in a number to see where the number came from, or the address. And I think
hmm
there's like another, I think it's address. Oh, it's the name. So if you
yeah.
also have the full name, but sometimes that's difficult if you have a very common name.
hmm
So entering the address is your best bet. But sometimes, you have to do a little bit of extra work. So if you
yeah.
do have a couple cents, maybe you just need a skip trace one record. Batch
hmm
skip is super convenient. But like I said, I still use tree people search sometimes,
yeah, I do
to
too.
gather some information.
Yeah, 100%, because it's easy, and if you're at the location, you just pull it up on your phone and then do it right there, and then you can call
Right.
if you wanted to.
Yeah, exactly. So, guys, in 30 minutes, we just laid out
Oh,
how you can get your first deal with little to no money. I think the list we gave you guys, honestly, for the most part, the most you'd have to spend is getting the pictures
hmm
if you're virtual. But everything else, you can honestly get it for free.
right.
Um, or maybe the most, if you did invest in some tools, maybe 150.
hmm
If you have $150 around or extra income there, that should be enough to get your full deal. I'm not saying it's going to be easy. It's a little bit tougher because you don't have like
Yeah.
certain things in place. So we do recommend like reaching out to people, networking with other investors. I think Bigger Pockets was one we didn't mention, but that's also a
That's a
great
good one.
tool
Yeah.
to network with other investors, buyers, even. Um, but we really hope you guys got a lot out of this, and we can like pack a lot more in a short amount of time. But
Sure.
Tim, anything you want to leave the audience with before we head out?
No, I just wanted to say these are the tips that you can utilize and start today. I mean, you don't have to
Yep.
wait. You can actually jump in a car, go out there and look at properties yourself. We gave you the website to go to actually find the phone number for that property.
Hmm.
And just start calling, be intentional. And that's we're doing that with this podcast to make it short and sweet.
Hmm.
So we want to make sure that you can go out there and do the same and see if you can actually lock up your first deal. And that's what it's all about.
Yeah, absolutely. So, guys, feel free to reach out, like this video, subscribe to our podcast. We're really going to start notching it up in terms of our content game as well. So that's why it makes it a little bit easier with that. But we're going to promise you that we'll have some guests this summer, or we're either going to meet up or whatever the case may be. So any way we can add value. But we appreciate everybody that tuned in and posted their, showed love and posted their questions. We really, really appreciate it. But we'll be back next week, 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern. But don't forget to tap in with us on Instagram, TikTok. Hit our link in the bio, and happy to help you guys. So hope you guys have a great day, and we'll tap you guys next week.
All right. See y'all.
All right.